Welcome back, everyone, to the next episode of Pengy's podcast. Today, we are talking about video games that have really poor films made on them. Today, we have Blue. So, would you like to introduce yourself, Blue?
Hi there, folks. I'm the Bluehead Cyborg. I like video games and occasionally also movies. You can find me usually on Twitch at the Bluehead Cyborg or on YouTube at the Bluehead Cyborg or the Bluehead Gamer.
Excellent. And of course, we also have the lovely Nikki Dangerous with us. Take it away, Nikki. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nikki Dangerous. You can easily find me on Twitch or YouTube at Nikki_Dangerous, and very pleased to be here.
It's lovely to have you both. So yeah, as we said, we're talking about... Because, let's be real. This year, we've had some really good films. Even last year, I'd admit, some really good films that have come from video games. But that hasn't always been the case. And, we're not here to talk about the good films like, the Mario that came out this year. Really good. Surprisingly good, actually. Obviously, Detective Pikachu a few years back. Again, another really good film. But we're here to talk about the real trash ones. Some are cult classics, obviously. Naturally, you think bad film, you think Super Mario Brothers. Awful film. A good time, but an awful film.
So, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, it's kind of like The Room of the video game movie market, to me. It's so bad, but you just have such a good time with it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like I said, I enjoy the film. It is a bad film. It does nothing to the source material. It's just like, why does this exist? But it's enjoyable.
I mean, God rest his soul, but Bob Hoskins was perfect.
He was, yeah. To be fair, I like him anyway. My favourite film, again, little divergent, I guess, but one of my favourite films he did was Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It really is. So,
if you can find it, The Long Good Friday's worth a watch as well. Very dated now, but good Bob Hoskins film.
See, I'm just having a little butchers down this list because when I'm on, I don't know about you guys, but on the spot, I'm like, I can't think of a single video game film.
We could move on from Super Mario to maybe Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat.
Do you know, I have not seen either of these movies. I know the memes of these movies more so than the actual movies themselves. My movie watching of these types of films is lacking in some regards, but I leave it to you. I hear that they are a fun time.
We've just had a quick editor note already, moments into the episode, where our dear producer and editor has said, Mortal Kombat is great, fight me. Now, would you like us to fatality that? I'll agree to a point. Mortal Kombat, the original film, was really good. Annihilation, however, get in the bin.
Well, I mean, the original, you've got Kylie Minogue, Jean-Claude Van Damme. I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, it doesn't matter how trash the movie, it's a bit like having Bob Hoskins and, who played the baddie in the, another famous actor played the baddie in the Super Mario Brother movie. The villain was played by Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, I mean, he did do it really well. Despite, again, not being Bowser.
See, I can see, I can see a soft spot for Street Fighter, yeah, but yeah, it was, from my memory, awful, and I must admit, I've not rewatched it.
I mean, I'll be honest, there's a lot of, I've seen quite a lot of video game films. Whether I stuck it out to the end is another story, but, I mean, Street Fighter 2 has, The Street Fighter film has the infamous phrase, today this was the most important day of your life. For me, it was a Tuesday. And that is just carried on in infamy.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I know of it. And for Raul Julia, that was actually his final film as well. He actually passed away, sadly, before its cinema release.
I didn't know that. That makes me sad a little bit because that was a great line. Honestly, it's lived for decades at this point.
It has, and it's one of those ones where it's carried over through multiple mediums as well. It is as reference, not necessarily in a memey way, but in like a genuine show of appreciation for his performance.
I mean, since we're sticking in the fighting territory, did anyone have the absolute pleasure of watching Double Dragon?
No. Well,
It's not good. It's not good. But it's one of those. It's not good, but it's good to watch because it's not good. Oh, it was great. But yeah, it loosely followed, obviously, the games. I think, if I remember rightly, I'm sure they changed the name of one of the characters as well, which got very strange. And I do believe, I can't remember his name now. The dude that played the T-1000 from Terminator, he was also in it.
Oh.
Somebody, Patrick.
That's it. Thank you. I'm not sure if that was one of his first films or not. But yeah, no, he was, again. It's interesting looking back, if anything, that a lot of these old, let's put it bluntly, crap films have had some really good actors in.
Yes.
Well, it's when you look back at some of these older films where you realise that some great actors, these movies were sort of their entryway. If we're going to move on this topic, Daniel Craig in Lara Croft Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
He became James Bond.
I forgot he was in Tomb Raider.
Yeah. Like, he was doing a lot more sort of indie type stuff at the time. If I remember correctly, this was close to the time where Layer Cake came out, which he was in, and a good few years before his debut as James Bond. But he played the main love interest rival to Lara in that movie. And for me, this was my first video game movie. I saw this in the cinema when it came out because I had a PlayStation 1. I had Lara Croft The Last Revelation, or Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, the fourth game in the series. And me and my sister only ever got past the first level. And like the prologue, we couldn't get any further at the time.
I feel like 90% of people who went to go watch Lara Croft watched it purely for Angelina Jolie.
I mean, I wasn't going to say it.
If you didn't know what Tomb Raider was, but you knew Jolie was in it.
And you knew that there was spiky bazongas in the polygonal days of the PlayStation 1.
Wasn't Rimmer in it as well? Wasn't Rimmer the butler or something?
Oh, maybe. Groff says yes.
Yeah, Arnold Rimmer. I can't remember the actor's name, which is terrible.
You're doing better than I am.
Our editor again has come in with the clutch. Chris Barry.
Of course.
Oh.
Right, we are jumping around a bit. Shall we stick with Lara Croft? Because, I mean, between looking at timescales, we've done quite well. We've done Mario, Double Dragon, Street Fighter.
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah,
next one on the list just before Tomb Raider is Wing Commander. I don't know if any of you have got fond memories of that one.
I know of the game, but I never actually watched the film on that one. Because whenever I think of Wing Commander as a film, I always think of that other sci-fi film, and I cannot remember what it was called. It was like where he does the arcade machine.
Oh, The Last Star, that film.
Yes, that's the one. So whenever anyone says, "Oh, have you seen Wing Commander?" my brain goes to Last Star Commander, and I know it's not the same thing, and I'm aware it's not the same thing, but I can never get them the right way around. Or Starfighter, is it called? Is it
The Last Starfighter?
Editors shouted at me, getting some proper angry typing. They're all in capitals and everything.
Look, everybody needs an editor scruff.
Look, I told you, it was one of those, I know of its existence, but it didn't stick. Either film did not stick long enough in my brain.
Well, the few, I mean, I actually enjoyed the Wing Commander film. It's, it got absolutely trashed by anyone who played the game and critics, and didn't do very well at the box office. But it had, oh crikey, Perot, Suchet, can't remember his first name, and a very young not Scooby-Doo, Shaggy. Trying to think of that actor's name
Matthew
as well.
Lillard.
Yeah, it's got some good actors in it, and also a use of the same bullet time effect that the same year was used in The Matrix.
Oh.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know which one technically came first, but yeah, because obviously The Matrix always says it did and it invented it. But yeah, it's actually in Wing Commander as well when they do the jump to super duper hyper diaper underwear space. Any comments from you, Blue, on Wing Commander?
No, I am very vaguely aware of the game and haven't seen the movie. Although I have heard of it talked in circles in the past. But to bring up a point that you said there, Nikki, of panned by fans of the original game, I think that's a sentiment that's going to be carried very strongly through a lot of the games on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that because the next one we're going to jump on is Resident Evil.
Oh, now this is okay. I will stand here and I will say Resident Evil is a fun, schlocky mess. It's so cheesy, it's so ridiculous, and I absolutely love it. And it has absolutely nothing to do with Resident Evil.
Well, yes and
kind of.
Because I'll be honest, I was kind of, as soon as it hit Resident Evil, I was like, "This is my time. This is my time." Because obviously the first film, yeah, kind of did its own thing, which everyone was like, "Okay, this is okay." People kind of liked it. The second film actually obviously incorporated more Raccoon City into it. It brought Nemesis in. A lot of people, again, from what I understand, a lot of people actually quite liked the second Resident Evil film, or at least more than the first one.
I certainly did. I think that between the two, they make a very good duology.
Yes. And then number 3 exists. And then from number 3 to the rest of it, what the hell?
Yes. And I think clarify for people at home, when we're talking about the Resident Evil, we are only going to be talking about the live action ones. We aren't going to be talking about the animated films that you'll also find on the likes of Netflix.
I mean, for 2 reasons. One, they're not live action, and, 2, they're actually good.
Strong words from Pengy.
I think, yeah, I'll stand my foot and I'll stand my ground and my flag. I really enjoyed the CGI Resi films. I think they're great. They stick to the canon for a start. They keep the characters. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, for me, the Resident Evil sort of franchise of films, for me, it's just a great guilty pleasure. I mean, I do like Paul W.S. Anderson as a director. I mean, he's done some. I mean, I think we'll get to him with Monster Hunter if we get that far. And I've got a sneaky feeling he was involved in. He was involved in. Was either Street Fighter or I think it might have been Mortal Kombat. He was involved in one of those as well. So
I've just checked. He was involved in the first Mortal Kombat movie, but was not a part of the second one.
Thank you.
It's one of those things, like at least specifically the Landers and Resident Evil, because obviously we did get was it Welcome to Raccoon City film that came out a couple of years back? I personally hated that. Didn't enjoy it. But specifically the Paul Anderson ones. Like the first one, yeah, okay, it was kind of its own story. The second one, like I said, they started to bring more game universe into the films, and that's personally where they started to go wrong in a weird way. Because again, number 3 brought more stuff from the games over, but in the wrong way. So like if I remember rightly, I'm sure the third film came out around the time that Resi 5 was quite big, or just released. So when you had the zombies in 5 with like the big tentacle mouse and the Ouroboros, that just then got thrown into the film with absolutely zero context behind it. Right. And as the films kept coming out, it kept paralleling the games. So it was taking bits from the games to throw into the films, but there was zero context in the films of why that's happening. It was just, oh, here's a thing that's from the game universe, Bosch put it in, but we're not going to tell you why that's now in the film, because we're not going to do that. Which seemed really backwards to do, really. And then obviously, again, in number 4 or 5, I want to say it is, with minor spoilers, if you haven't seen them, but with the 4 and 5, the revelation of Jill and Wesker, again, that paralleled the video game of 5 with the Jill and Wesker thing, but they kept her blonde as well. to go with the game. Even had the jewel on her chest, like the game version, with again 0 context behind it. Where 5 built up this whole reason behind it, and it's just little things like that. I can nitpick all day. Don't get me wrong, I can easily nitpick all day.
I think one thing for the context of the Resident Evil movie franchise that we do need to give it credit for is that it is a big part of the reason why we got Resident Evil 4 in the way we did. The move to far more action-oriented gameplay. 4 came out after the first Resident Evil movie, and the parallels are definitely there. And we saw a brand new resurgence in the video games from that.
Oh, dear editor,
Do I have a source?
I was just asked if you have a source for that information, because from what I understand about 4, the reason it's so wild, or at least its creation was wild, is, I want to say it's Shinji Mikami that made it. I could be wrong.
Mikami did make it, but Resident Evil 4 came out in 2005, and the first Resident Evil movie came out in 2002.
The reason because obviously from what I know, because again, 4 is one of my personal favourites, and after following it, the reason it is so peculiar is because they tried to do something different, and that's why the original run of 4 became Devil May Cry, because they went too in one direction.
Yes, because then Code Veronica was supposed to be a mainline series game as well, and then they pivoted away from that.
Yep, and and then again, like I think it was the second or third run of Resi 4 went on to become Haunting Ground. So I mean, don't get me wrong, like we could have had Resi 4 in the style of Devil May Cry or the Haunting Ground, but instead we got two brand new IPs instead out of it. Plus we eventually got Resi 4, so at the end of the day, win-win on that one.
Well, exactly. But I think it's quite interesting to see how the Resident Evil movie franchise has fed into the entire Resident Evil fandom at large. And again, some fairly big actors in that one. Mila Jovovich, Michelle Rodriguez was in it.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of big names in this movie. You went on to create some, really excellent films. Well, I say that it's mostly Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah. But again, I guess it's one of those. It's one of those kind of, especially the way like video games and films go. Everyone has different opinions. Everyone has different expectations walking in. For myself, obviously, big Resi fan. So when I saw the films, the first 2 I really dug, and then as they got on, I started to lose interest. But I've got all the source material as a Resi gamer, where other people that aren't big into games but then watch the films, like they'll have a different connection with it, I guess.
Well, that's me. I watched most of these films before I actually played a Resi game myself, and as somebody who watched those films without the context of the games, they were a mess. So I can't imagine what it must be like to be a fan of the games and then seeing what became of those films later, because just as a regular moviegoer, they were odd, to put it politely.
I mean, obviously, again, Nikki, I'm not unsure. Have you ever played a Resi game, or is it one of those you've sort of dabbled?
Not. I am aware of them, but I have never played one.
And like how? I mean, purely because we're on the Resi topic. I mean, obviously, there's many more games, but there's a lot of Resi films. Again, like as someone that's aware of the games, but definitely consumed the film sides of it. How did you find the films?
I say real guilty pleasure. I've got a lot of films on my list of guilty pleasures that, there's plot holes. Maybe the special effects aren't particularly good. Maybe the story's not particularly good. Usually the acting's okay. I just, bolt in for the ride, and, it's Alice versus Zombies. And of course, the corporation of it, Umbrella.
Do you know, there is one thing, just because you said about the acting, and there's one thing that really got on my goat. I think it might have been the 5th or 6th film when they brought Leon in, and whoever they got to play Leon was a fucking disgrace. I am so sorry, but oh my god. Like again, that felt more like a personal thing, if anything,
Yeah.
because again, 4, one of my favorites, Leon, one of my favorite characters. Again, he was in 2, and what the actor did to the character, I was like, no, why would you do that? Hearing rumors that he was going to be in that film, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna have live action Leon, and then we saw it was like, what did you do? Why did you do that? The poor boy. And yet on the reverse cover of that, the guy that they got to play Barry from Resi 1 nailed it. He was perfect, like in build, acting chops, personality, like he nailed it. But Leon butchered.
But now I can't remember. Did they include the Jill sandwich line?
I can't remember. I feel like they did.
I
could
feel
be
like
wrong.
surely they must have. You know, if you're gonna make something
Potentially.
for the fans like that,
Yeah, I mean we've definitely lingered on Resident Evil for a while. Granted, there's a many film, and I guess that's why we've kind of stood here a little while.
Yeah,
it's 6 films in the original series plus then the one new one. But I think also we've lingered, but we've covered basically all of them in one go, really, as well. So,
I mean, I'm gonna from one horror franchise to another. The Silent Hill film, because you know why not? We're already in the horror section of films, but again, Resident Evil, Silent Hill. Sorry, as someone again that big Silent Hill fan, they made a few changes between the story in the very first game, but a lot of it was very much almost story beat for beat. They just made a few changes here and there, like it wasn't actually the mother that was looking for the daughter; it was the father in the original.
Right.
So it's just little, like little bits here and there. They did obviously change some bits for cinema side. And personally, that was the first time I watched a film based on a game and thought this was really good. They really did well with this. From lore side to what it looked like visually, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you get the next part.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. Was it Silent Hill Revelations? Yeah, Revelations.
Yeah.
Again, that tried to, because again in Silent Hill, the first game and the third game are direct sequels, and obviously the first film and then Revelations again they did the direct sequel thing, and they changed a few things, and they added bits of lore that made no sense, because all the creatures in Silent Hill, for those that don't know, are based on the specific main character's psyche. Now in the film, right near the end, I think it was, they had 3 pyramid heads turning this big cog. They had no reason to be there, because that was all to do with James. To be fair, saying that, he wasn't, Pyramid Head shouldn't have been in the first film either, because that was all to do with James Sunderland, who was from the second game. So again, there's bits here and there that shouldn't have been where they were, but they were still very good.
That's it.
Yeah.
I know next to nothing about Silent Hill. I know Sean Bean is in one of the films, and that's about it. But
he's actually in both.
He's in both, is he? Oh.
Yep. So he plays the father of the girl, or the adopted father of the girl, Alyssa, I believe. He plays obviously a slightly bigger role in the second, but again, in the first one, while the mother's running around in the Silent Hill world, he's in the real world variant. So he's trying to find them. And fun fact, he doesn't actually die either in the first Silent Hill film.
I was just about to say, is this another one to go on the short tally list of films Sean Bean has not died in?
Yes. Although if memory serves, he did die in the second one, so
well, you gotta level out them scales, haven't you?
I think he did. I can't actually remember.
Oh,
I feel like he did.
Editor Scruff in here saying no, he didn't.
Oh, did he not? Okay, I could have sworn at one point he got stabbed or something.
I mean, people walk off stabbings all the time.
I don't know. I'm remembering that he got stabbed, but I guess not.
Lots of people get stabbed in these movies, and they walk it off, and 2 minutes later, they're all good.
He went back. He went back into the Silent Hill after. Oh, of course, yes, he was rescued. You are right, Editor Scruff to save the day. He's doing a good job today. Oh, hero of the hour, because my brain does not retain information all that well. It would seem.
I'm guilty of that as well. I mean, I know I've got both the Silent Hill films, and I mean, the first one is quite interesting because it's a very female-led film and story and was directed by a man, and then you flip to the sequel that has got Sean Bean, a male sort of lead, which was actually directed by a woman. So that was quite an interesting fact I picked up the other day while sort of researching these two. And also the choreographer who did the creatures in the original Silent Hill actually watched and played the games so they could get the movements right for the creatures. And I thought, again, that was a really good, and again, the director was using angles where you could relate it back to the game, although I've never played it. And yeah, from what you've said, Pengy, they did a good job with the original.
Oh yeah, I mean, either you watched the special features like I did, or you did a little research. But yeah, no, the original Silent Hill film was, and as you pretty much just said, it was made with love, and you can kind of feel that. Just watching it, you can see that they really researched what they were doing before they did it.
Yeah.
Although
Right.
leading on to something where they didn't research very well and did it.
Go on.
Dead or Alive.
Now, do you know, it's funny, I have no recollection of that film at all.
Until this podcast coming up, I didn't know this film existed.
Yeah, it's awful. From the acting to the fight sequences, it's just, of all the things to try and turn into a film, let's not even try and hide it. Anyone that plays Dead or Alive enjoys fighting games, but lots of jigglies. Okay, that's the main draw of Dead or Alive. It's pretty ladies with giant titties beating the crap out of each other. That is it.
Boing, boing, boing.
I mean, they even spun off into a different series, which was the volleyball games, and it was just this big dating sim volleyball.
Extreme Beach Volleyball,
That's
which
the one.
I think you could make that into a film. It would only be shown on certain channels after a certain time of night, and I mean, at least if you were to make one of those films, it would probably have about the same production and acting ability as the rest of these films, which is about the same as a B movie porno flick.
And you know what? It would probably be about 90% more successful.
Probably.
Have a guess who was one of the producers?
It's got to be Yuri Bowl. Got to be.
No, Paul W.S. Anderson.
I'm not even surprised.
He's dipping his toes into a lot of different of these movies, isn't he?
That is hysterical.
Ah.
I mean, if we want to talk about movies which they took some influence of the games, but kind of went in a bit of a different direction. Doom back in 2005 with Carl Urban and The Rock. What could go wrong?
Apparently everything, if you watch the final
everything.
creation.
I mean, one thing that I will give the Doom movie credit for is that first-person sequence towards the end of the film.
Yes.
Yep.
That was fantastic. That was great fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I obviously definitely want to get Nikki's thoughts in a second. Because I know for a fact, Blue, that you've played Doom and you're a fan as well.
Do you know what? I am a fan of Doom. I've not played very many of the original Doom games, but I have 100%ed this 2016 remake and played a reasonable bit of Doom Eternal. But I've played a fair amount, of the very first Doom game, but 64, 2, and 3 are still a miss on my playlist.
They're always pretty cheap. I mean, without being on sale, you can pick up Doom 2 and 3 and 64 for about £4.
I have all of them multiple times, and I just haven't had the time really to get around to playing past the first one so far. But a lot of fun. I mean, let's be real. The original Doom games don't have a huge amount of plot.
No, they have next to zero plot. It's very much here you are, murder things, go. But even so, the film could have done so much more than what it did.
Doom film came out in 2005, by which time several of the games had come out by that point. Yeah, Doom 3 released in 2004. But even then, you've still got the first several Doom games, Doom 2, Final Doom, and Doom 64 to draw from, all of which involved various levels of plot.
And not that kind of plot.
And not that kind of plot.
I mean, Nikki, how did you fare with the Doom film if you've seen it?
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's got some good actors in it. The visual effects aren't that bad. Again, you always have to consider age and budgets on these things. And yeah, I mean, I definitely remember the original Doom because that was quite a big thing at the time. And then Son gifted me the VR version of Doom because he'd worked on it.
Wow.
So I played that. So I've got an awareness of the games, but certainly from my point of view, it is sort of like, well, yeah, you run around and you kill things. That is it. So to make that into a movie, I don't know. I mean, yeah, they could have done more, probably with a larger budget, and they probably could have, had a better story. But yeah, it was okay. It was okay.
Doom is definitely, especially since the 2016 remake, has definitely had a renaissance. And since we're on the topic of Doom, we might briefly mention Annihilation. We're delving a little bit away, but I think it's worth mentioning it. The direct-to-DVD sequel in 2019, which was they had 2016 Doom to draw from for plot, and somehow it had worse plot than the 2005 movie, and somehow worse effects. It was all around just awful. I'll give props to God, I cannot remember her name right now, but the lead character, she I think is probably the best part of that film. It's not saying a lot. I think she does the best with what she's got in that film, but I think the writing in particular let down Annihilation, and it direct to DVD. It's not going to have the biggest budget or anything, but you'd think after 14 years they'd be able to do something more.
So from quite well-known franchises, I've just had a little scroll down the list because I'm curious, just seeing some things. One that just caught my attention is called Dead Trigger. I've not seen this film, but it's based on a mobile game of the exact same name. Now, I used to play Dead Trigger on my phone all the time, and seeing that there's a film based on it has piqued some serious interest.
Yeah, relatively recently, 2019. That would, yeah, I don't know that one.
I mean, like, the general thing of the phone game, it was just, short bursts of levels, get your money, upgrade your guns, and just go. So I'm not really sure how they'd have done a story for a whole film out of that. Who was it directed by? Oh, no one I've heard. Mike Cuff and Scott Windhauser.
Apparently has Dolph Lundgren in it as well.
Well, that's one we should have researched before we mentioned it.
Well, yeah. But, now everyone else can go off and research it, I'm sure we're all going to afterwards.
Yeah, I mean,
Autumn Reeser was in it. Get out. What?
There's a lot of video game movies. They're very drastically varied quality. I don't think between all of us we've been able to watch every single one, but...
Well, not when they're so niche like that.
Yep.
I mean, according to this, from what I've just had a little look around on, it didn't even get a score rating. So anyone that's seen it clearly didn't care enough to leave a score if it was good or not.
On the page, apparently it has it got a 4 out of 10 by somebody. And
do you know what's hilarious?
Audience rating of 0.3%.
That's higher than some of the other films we've already spoken about that are actually known.
Yeah.
One we didn't talk about was Alone in the Dark, and Alone in the Dark is about 2% people liked it, if that. And Alone in the Dark is an interesting one because that was, again, it was a first-person. No, it weren't. It was third-person survival, kind of, in the same vein as Silent Hill and Resident Evil. But for the film, they decided to go with aliens. It was an interesting jump. It was crap. I think I've got a big salty. Yeah, I've definitely got a lot of salt and taste for these films because a lot of these films that I saw, I was a big fan of. Like as we've already said, like Resident Evil and Silent Hill and other things like that, especially Alone in the Dark, one of my favourites. And then to watch this film completely tarnish everything to do with it, it was just, why do you exist? I know for a fact it was Uwe Boll as well. I don't even need to look that up. I know it was Uwe Boll that did it. You can know, you just tell that if it's a really, really bad film, he's done it, most likely.
I don't know. There's some other ones on here which are really bad that Uwe Ball had nothing to do with, kind of like, Doom.
I said most of the time. If it looks like there's been a budget behind it, it probably wasn't him.
Well, I'll tell you another really not great video game movie that Uwe Ball was not involved in, which really got the salt out of me. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time.
Wasn't that Disney?
That was Disney.
Yeah.
That had Jake Gyllenhaal, Ben Kingsley, Gemma Arterton, and Alfred Molina in it. And it's one of I grew up with the Prince of Persia PS2 trilogy. I love the game The Sands of Time. I am very, very, very excited for the remake. And I just feel like The Godfather was like, look how they massacred my boy! Everything that they could do wrong in this movie, they did wrong. They took all the plot, threw it out the window, made it like a weird, the tiniest little hint of romance thing in it to be the entire thing. It's just wrong on so many levels. And they pushed out games like The Forgotten Sands to tie in with the release as best as they could. Part of why the Forgotten Sands games are of varying quality.
And why it was forgotten.
And why it was forgotten. But yeah, The Sands of Time, if it's on a streaming service, maybe give it a watch, but it's really not great. And if you're a fan of the games, I wouldn't do it to yourself.
I mean, in the same vein of big companies going for that kind of thing, we also had Assassin's Creed. Ooh, the silence straight away for that.
Okay, so I haven't played much of Assassin's Creed, and I haven't watched the film. But when I was looking at the trailers for it and everything, I was just like, okay. I mean, like, out of video games in modern memory that you could make a movie out of, Assassin's Creed is definitely one of the ones where the plot and gameplay would lend itself quite well to a film.
Well,
how did it turn out, though?
It weren't great. I guess it was one of those, if you had nothing to watch, then, it was there to watch, then it'd be like, yeah, okay, we'll just chuck it on. Like when you put a film on in the background while you're doing something else. It's kind of one of those films where it's, it exists.
Yeah, certainly wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but yeah, it's one of those that, like you say, a wet Sunday afternoon with nothing better to do, then yeah, if it's on a streaming service you've already got and you haven't got to pay for it, give it a whirl. I mean, it's funny, it did just bounced into. I did play the original Macintosh, which was a sideways scrolling platform game, basically Prince of Persia. So if you've only ever played that one, then the film's pretty good.
I mean, that's one way of looking at it.
I mean, yes, I have also played that one because in most of the Prince of Persia games, it's an unlockable for completion. Is playing that game. So for plot wise, I mean, certainly it does better plot than that.
I mean, it's around the 2019 mark though, is where we actually started to get some really good films, which is kind of gonna throw this off a little bit, but probably not a bad place to actually end up, because finally we're actually getting good films based on games.
Yeah, we have to skip over a few to get there. I mean, we can quickly mention Need for Speed, which, yeah, no.
Yeah, I saw that, and it just looked like a Fast and Furious clone, and I don't like Fast and Furious anyway, so I completely didn't even bother with it.
Yeah, I mean, put it into perspective, it is a poor man's Fast and Furious.
You say poor man's Fast and Furious, and yet it was made also by Disney.
And the lie there was?
Well, that's true. Although other racing
rude.
films, I believe, I bring this up because I know Nikki actually reviewed this one. The Gran Turismo, how did that stack?
Going pretty much up to to date, yeah, obviously you'd have to live under a rock if you didn't know about Gran Turismo. And the one thing I didn't know though was the fact that they were going to base the film on something that actually happened in the history of Gran Turismo, and that's when they got the top drivers and actually made them real racing car drivers. And so it does have that edge that although it's Gran Turismo, it's a true story. And yeah, I was blown away. If you read my review on TYG, I thought they did a really good job. And yeah, how else do you bring a racing game? Need for Speed shows how it shouldn't be done. Gran Turismo, I think, was lucky having that true story, but also, I mean, it gave me goosebumps. So yeah, that's on the very good scale as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, it's almost like, as you say, when instead of doing one thing, trying something different, they did the same thing with the Tetris film. I've not seen it yet, but just seeing from what I've read and trailers, I'm really interested to watch the Tetris film.
You can read my review on TYG.
Do you know what? I feel really bad. I didn't realize you covered Tetris.
It's about the history, and yeah, obviously it's a Hollywood film, so it's gonna make some things a little bit more fun or exaggerated. But yeah, I had no idea that the history behind it. So yeah, I'll thoroughly recommend that as well.
Because when it first got announced, me and a group of friends, we saw the trailer and we ripped it apart. And before we'd actually watched the trailer, a trailer got dropped, someone dropped an image, and we just ripped it. And then we actually all watched the trailer. And about an hour later, we all, reconvened. It was like, actually, that looks really good. And that was kind of on us initially to just tear into it and not actually do any sort of research. That was a big, maybe we should look more next time.
One thing I want to bring up with what Nikki mentioned there about Gran Turismo, which is during especially the pandemic and the likes, we saw a big surge in crossover between racing simulators and racing drivers. We know now that there are some racing drivers who will do their practice in racing simulators because they've become so advanced now. And we even have an official Formula League for e-racing. That it's the Formula One equivalent, but digitally with racing simulators now. I think it's quite an interesting crossover there, which how the real world and video games sort of intertwine and gives birth to the likes of the stories which we see in the Gran Turismo movie.
See, that's also information I didn't know, and that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's quite a fairly recent thing, but the pandemic was certainly a big thing in boosting that, because obviously social distancing, everybody had to stay at home and stuff like that. And as Editor Scruff is saying here as well, training pilots in flight sims as well. This is part of where in some heavy equipment they'll use a controller, like a game controller for it, because one, they're very ergonomic and easy to handle, and two, a lot of people are quite used to this sort of form factor now as well. So, video games out into the real world in various ways as well. We're seeing a lot of bleed through from it.
But even a little bit, I guess a little bit military side. Quite a few like drones and stuff used to be controlled by I think it was PlayStation 2 controllers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Xbox controllers.
Yeah.
Does
Did anyone
everyone
watch the Warcraft film?
Yes,
I did.
love it.
I didn't. So this is, I mean, I looked at it and I was like, I don't know, it just looks like another fantasy film, and I completely tuned it out.
So I watched this about 3 hours before we started recording this. I have never played any of the Warcraft games. I've always been interested, especially in WoW, in World of Warcraft. And the Warcraft film definitely seems to me to take a lot from the original strategy games and role-playing games. I had a fun time with it. As like a casual, like I know little tiny bits of lore from like cultural osmosis. I think it's actually quite a fun movie. Although I guess again for a lot of people who are into the franchise, possibly not so much.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it's got Ruth Negga, oh crikey, and her husband. If you've seen Preacher, the Amazon series,
Yes.
yeah, it's the same couple from there who play the king and queen in Warcraft, and yeah, they make it. I mean, they were actually married, I believe, for a short time. But yeah, they do make, on screen a very good couple. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. As I say, yeah, probably not liked by a lot of people. And again, hopefully comments might say different. But I don't think it was heavily loved by those that play the game.
Yeah, so we got going back to Wes Anderson, because I'm going to dunk on him for a little bit. I've got to about taking a franchise and messing with it. Frigging Monster Hunter. I would say personally 30% of that film was really good. And that 30% was exclusively the monsters that we saw, the weapons, and that was about it. That's probably less than 30, honestly. Because there was a lot that went on in that film. The first hour of that film, nothing happens. It's all about, I can't remember the character's name, but she gets captured and this, that, and the other, and other things happen, and she's fighting this other hunter. Boring. We see some bugs that they all run away from. That was cool. They were really cool. And then back to boring. And then, we finally got to see some actual monsters. And when they started showing off the monsters properly and getting the big weapons out, everything that people know Monster Hunter for, which is unnecessarily sized weaponry and giant monsters. That's what you're here for. And we probably got maybe 20 to 30 minutes of that in a 2-hour film. It was just shocking. And that one hurt me a lot because I'm a big fan of Monster Hunter. I was really excited for it. And then the best bit was the last sort of 10 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 at a push.
So it sounds like standard UE Ball fare if we're going back to a comparison with Resident Evil then.
They were both Wes Anderson.
Oh.
No, all WS.
All W.S. Anderson, sorry.
Yeah, Wes Anderson is he does the weird, nice but weird films. But yeah, sorry to correct you, but yeah, I knew nothing about the game at all when I saw the film, and I had high hopes because of it being, that director and Mila again. I believe they're married in real life. I think they're still married.
But they were when a lot of the Resis were done. I believe they still are. It's pretty much he wants to make a film. He's got an actor which is his wife. Boom, let's make money.
They are still married, yeah.
But yeah, I was disappointed with Monster. As you say, it just didn't. Yeah, it didn't deliver as just a film for me.
It was just a slap in the face for me.
Well, I'd like to end this on for me at least, a high note. And a redemption story. And that is Tomb Raider. Because I think that the Tomb Raider remake from 2018 was actually good. At least, certainly in comparison to a lot of the things that we've talked about today. It's got a much more coherent plot. It is, it's based on the new remake trilogy that we've got at the minute from Square Enix. And I think it genuinely does a lot of really good things to translate the game into a movie and does a lot of it right. And even if you're not a fan of the Tomb Raider games, I think you could still find a lot of enjoyment out of that movie. Much more than the original Tomb Raider films.
I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah. Honest, genuinely, out of all the ones that I've personally mentioned here today, I think this is one where if you are a fan of Tomb Raider, give this a watch. Like, you can ignore the Angelina Jolie ones. They're just whatever. This is like genuinely like a decent film, not just a video game film.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because looking at the timestamp of when that came out, 2018. It seems to be around the 2018 mark. Well, obviously I already said Detective Pikachu, which is 2019. But if Tomb Raider was in there, then it seems to be it was around the 2018 mark where filmmakers actually thought, well, let's actually make a good film.
Yeah, I think we've definitely seen a turning point in the last few years.
Well, I say I can't speak for personal opinion about Tomb Raider, but only a year after that we had Detective Pikachu, great success.
Yeah.
Granted, Monster Hunter was 2020, but we'll brush that aside for now.
There's always going to be a couple bumps along the road.
Of course. I mean, obviously, we had Raccoon City as well in 2021. But, to counter Monster Hunter, we got Sonic the Hedgehog in 2020. And that's a cracking film.
Yeah.
Minus, I say minus. I think, if anything, especially when they first showed off Sonic, which is now dubbed Ugly Sonic, the fact that the fans... correctly, yeah. The fact that the fans bullied Paramount? Yeah, Paramount.
Paramount, yeah.
They bullied them into changing his design. Because it's like, what the hell is this you are? No.
The only time internet bullying has been correct.
And you know what? It seems like they should have. Oh, the goose. See, even the goose is mad. Even the goose was all for changing Sonic as well. But the second one, again, fantastic. Third one's coming next year. Can't wait. And then recently we got Five Nights at Freddy's, which I've heard many people say is a really good film.
Yeah, I've not seen it. The only reports, Willy's Wonderland is very, very similar.
Yes.
And I would say if you're under 80, then yeah, watch Five Nights at Freddy's. If you're over 80, want something a bit scarier, then Willy's Wonderland. I think they went for a PG-13 rating, which obviously will. Whereas I believe Willy's Wonderland is an 18, so there's a lot more where they can go. But people seem to like the story. It's done well, I believe, at the box office. They're already talking about it becoming a franchise. So yeah, that does look like another good one.
And it's got Matthew Iliad in it.
Yeah, it apparently has 2 sequels planned already. Which, is a very Scott Cawthon thing to do.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But, since we're up to present, we have a lot of movies coming out soon with video game adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
Might be something we can reconvene for at a later date, because there's a lot coming out with just the next 2 years.
I mean, this could be a potential Pengy review in the future, but after the great success of the Mario movie... There is talk in the wind that they're doing a live-action Zelda film. I'm dead against this. I'm so dead against this. But potentially, well, I say potentially, there's... I'm not sure if it's a rumor or if it has been confirmed yet.
It has been confirmed.
Oh, it's been confirmed? That's even worse.
It was an official publication on Nintendo's Japanese site, and then announced afterwards on their official Twitter accounts. So it is a thing that's happening.
That concerns me so much.
They have a director and production studio already announced.
Yeah, that concerns me. Oh, so yeah, that was a dive. Some of these films are good memories. Some of them are bad times, or bad films, good times with friends.
Yes, exactly. But at the end of the day, we've gone on an upward trend, I think, with these films.
Definitely.
And again, we haven't covered, any animated feature films of games. We've not covered TV series. We've almost not covered, I think, direct-to-video. So, there is a lot more to dive into. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully a few more of these at some stage.
Definitely. I think, sounds good. I think, it's quite a nice little way to end on, actually. We've battered some of the really, crap ones. We've praised some of the ones that are actually really decent. And I guess, out of the worst ones that you've personally seen or had fond memories of the games, and then saw the film and was like, ooh. Say you was with a group of friends, and it was like, right, let's have some drinks, or... when you get your friends together, you have some drinks, and you just have a crappy film for a good time. What would you say was so bad it's good that you would put on with friends to have a laugh at?
The original Mario, because that is because it was the first live action feature film of a game, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, as far as I'm aware. yeah, it's however bad it is, it has it has a place in history, and yeah, it's terrible. But a bit like Flash Gordon, when they remade Flash Gordon, it's not a good movie. I don't care what anyone says, but you have to watch it, and you will watch it multiple times. So yeah, that's mine.
What about yourself, Blue?
I think Mario is a fantastic one for that, but personally, I think I'd go for Resident Evil. Just a schlocky, cheesy, good time, having a bit of a laugh, and it is a bad movie, but it's also a good movie at the same time. It's a very weird one, but no, I think Resident Evil, slap that on during Halloween with a couple drinks with your mates, perfect.
So sticking with the zombie theme, I'm going to go to a different area. I'm going to say House of the Dead.
No.
Because the games were known as extremely cheesy affairs. Like, if you've ever played a House of the Dead, completely cheesy dialogue, it's ridiculous. The film somehow carries that perfectly, and it's the only thing it carries perfectly. But again, House of the Dead is one of those films that you need to experience.
Might have to. I was a big fan of those, playing those arcade cabinets.
Oh yeah. I mean, even the remake. If anything, it's a good time too, because the remake for modern consoles came out this year or last year.
I think this year.
Yeah, it was obviously it was the port of the original. Why they only did one game is beyond me, but they whatever. But yeah, I think that covers about everything. So, again, massive thank you to Blue for coming along for this talk of crappy films.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. It's given me a lot to think about, to dive into in my own time. Especially if we dive into any other types of adaptations, like Nikki said, animated series, animated films, or TV series, or anything.
And of course, as you mentioned, we're also joined by the lovely Nikki. And again, thank you so much for your time as well.
No, thank you. It's been an absolute blast, and yeah, hopefully, if it gets enough views or listens, we'll do it again.
Well, I'm sure we could find a topic that we can all reconvene on a different thing. We don't have to do this for us three again. We can find another topic, I'm sure. As always, we will put the places that you can find our two lovely guests up in our description box. So, if you want to go check either of them out on Twitch, go do it. They are lovely people. I'd say one's chaotic and one's filthy, but they're both of them are that, honestly. And
Pretty consistent.
Of course, it's our vibe. And as always, I've been Pengy, and yeah, thank you all for coming, and see you next time. Also, before I do go, don't forget to hit subscribe and like, and maybe share it with your friends, or your cat, or both. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.